Good afternoon. Welcome back to the frozen tundra on the Oneida Nation Reservation in Wisconsin. Today is Thursday, January 22nd, and it's going to lead us into one of the coldest days, if not the coldest day so far this year. We've got a lot of information today. At the end of the segment, we're going to follow up with some of the weather-related information, cancellations, closures, and some of the restrictions. So, I forgot to tell you, I'm Bobby Webster. I'm the PR director for the Oneida Nation. And today we have with us Melinda Danforth, who's the director of the Oneida Nation's Intergovernmental Affairs Department. So Melinda's going to tell us some of the things that are happening on the legislative front and some of the things that we can look forward to finding out later, maybe next week, some things that are happening.
Yeah,
Melinda.
Absolutely. Yawʌʌkó, Melinda Danforth, just like Bobby said, providing an overview of what we can expect legislatively from the federal political scene. And I think I was on a couple months ago where I indicated that the politics in Washington, D.C. are just not the same. I think for the most part, people have learned to play the political game in Washington, D.C., but with this administration and this Congress, it's been very difficult to anticipate and be upfront, and we're being more responsive than we are being on the front end of things this time around. I think the frustrating part of it is that even our congressional delegation is unaware of what is coming until it actually happens. So that is something that we've been trying to adapt to and continue to just build our relationships that we have with our Wisconsin congressional delegation. And for the most part, our Oneida has very, very good relationships with most of our Wisconsin congressional delegations, so our senators and our representatives here in Wisconsin. Currently in Congress, they're focused on getting the budget passed. So another government shutdown is looming on January 30th. And Congress is hoping to have a budget passed by then. If not, we've been able to assess the nation's programs and services as to whether or not we would be impacted heavily or if there was minimal impact. And I'm happy to report at this time that it would be very minimally impacted by a partial or a full shutdown. With that said, I think we could last until about March-ish before we start seeing some more impacts to the nation's programs and services, but we don't expect that the shutdown would occur for that long. And then, of course, with tribal nations working to advance what they call advanced appropriations, which is that forward funding, that funding that we get on the front end for Indian Health Services, and then forward funding for our schools and for programs under our self-governance department. We, again, have worked very hard to make sure that the government shutdowns are minimally impacting the nation's programs and services. And so normally around this time of the year, our nation's leadership, the business committee, our staff in intergovernmental affairs are pretty busy working Congress and being in Washington, D.C., not just on our own, but with other tribal organizations such as the Midwest Alliance of Sovereign Tribes. They have an Impact Week, they call it Impact Week, and it's held in Washington, D.C., where the Midwest tribes meet and they discuss issues of importance to the Midwest, and then they go and lobby on the Hill. So there's meetings already set up with Congress people from either committees that are, what they call them committees of jurisdiction, so those committees that have the authority to make decisions around funding on certain topics. So those meetings are usually held in March, and so we're preparing for that. And then we have Councilman Jonas Hill and Councilman Jamison Wilson, who will also be attending the National Congress of American Indians Executive Winter Council coming up at the beginning of February. So we have plenty to prepare for them, and I just wanted to touch on a couple of issues that have arisen to the top of our workload here in intergovernmental affairs. First off is we want to stop the spread of online illegal sports wagering. In the last year or so, multiple corporations like Helshi, Crypto.com, Robinhood, FanDuel, and DraftKings, they began offering sports wagering online, especially in particular where states where it's illegal already, such as the state of Wisconsin. They simply changed the name sports betting to event contracts, and these companies assert that the wager or the bet that becomes a financial instrument that is exempt from federal law, everything but federal law. Even if it is the wager on athletic performances, so athletes in the NFL, athletes in the NBA, game outcomes, the score, or statistical sporting achievements like who's going to win the Heisman, they allow for any type of bet online. Tribes and tribal organizations such as the Indian Gaming Association and many states have sued these companies, and some state attorney generals are taking action to ban this activity in their states. Here in Wisconsin, the Oneida Nation has engaged with our Wisconsin Attorney General to follow in the footsteps of other states to ban that activity since it's already illegal in the state of Wisconsin. We are also working with our federal lobbyists and other organizations to push legislation that would address this issue in the crypto bill. So, and of course, the last component, well, one of the last components, is educating Congress of the impacts that this has as a result of illegal activity taking away revenues that would we would produce in our tribal gaming operations that's used to fund our programs and services that we offer to our tribal community. The second major issue that we are preparing for and that we've already have lobbied on this past summer is the NAHASDA reauthorization. So the Native American Housing and Self-Determination Act of 1996 expired in 2013, and what that law does is basically fund our low-income housing program here in Oneida. And it allows for tribes to design their own programs to meet our tribal members' needs through rental assistance or home buying programs, and then rehabbing our homes that have been built with those dollars. And again, this is a low-income program that would affect many families. Luckily, Congress has continued to fund that program over the years since the legislation has expired. But again, I think it's safe to say that we do not want to take a chance that they won't fund it, and we're going to push for the reauthorization of this act. And then the third thing was I seen some comments out there from our community on social media was the recent announcement of SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, had issued termination notices to entities that had already been awarded funding for programs that would address mental health and opioid and addiction epidemic activities. So that was very absolutely concerning. We took action right away to understand how much money the nation received via that grant, whether or not we did receive it, and we do, and whether or not we received a termination notice. And I'm glad to report that we had not received a termination notice, but then we made contact right away with our senator's office, and the HHS secretary ended up stepping in and overturned that decision the very next day. So, but those are the type of activities that we are very concerned about, that there is potential impacts to our community that we cannot get in front of because we are not made aware of some of that activity, and nor was our senators or congressional delegation aware of these activities and that this was going to occur, so they're being as reactive as we are. So it's always good to have those type of collaborative relationships where we can make that phone call to our congressional representatives to make sure that they're advocating for what is happening here in Oneida. One of the last things I want to touch on is that midterm elections are coming up, and midterm elections could change the landscape of what is occurring. And so I would very highly encourage you all to take a look at the ballot and get out the vote during midterm elections. And we'll be posting more information about the midterm elections, who's running, what kind of candidate are they, what can you expect from them. So please continue to watch for that information. And now on to our exciting news, Bobby, for us anyway. Some of you may recall that in 2017, the Oneida Nation conducted an economic impact study with St. Norbert's College. It was an independent study done by the St. Norbert's College Business and Economic Analysis. At that time, the nation's economic impact in Brown and Outagamie County alone totaled $744 million. Since 2017, as well as you know, the entire world felt the wrath of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the nation's leadership coming out of the pandemic vowed to work hard to rebuild our nation's economic, financial, and community foundation. And one component and one way to validate and quantify our direct and indirect effects on the economy to the local and state, this is done through an economic impact study. And I believe there's an infographic there that kind of explains how that economic impact study, when we're putting in money into services and programs, we're spending money and we have jobs and we're paying compensation to employees, and then the employees are going to Walmart or they're making payments on the utilities. That impact, that dollar is expanded across multiple economies. And so at the end of the day, what we're putting in to the economy, we're making that impact of 744. But like again, I said we wanted to assess how well we did and how we're coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I'm pleased to invite all of you to join us in person or virtually to the Business Committee meeting on Wednesday, January 28th at 2 o'clock for the presentation of the nation's updated economic impact study conducted by the St. Norbert's College Center for Business and Economic Analysis. So we hope you can join us, like I said, either in person or virtually, and there's a link there to our nation's business committee where you can watch it live virtually and you'll be able to see the actual presentation as well. So that's all I have for today, Bobby.
Yeah, that's exciting news. Ending on a good note, Melinda, thank you for sharing that. And I hope everybody does remember next Wednesday, the 28th, 2 o'clock, go online, watch the Oneida Business Committee meeting. Google Economic Impact Study, Google Oneida Nation. Take a look at what that means. It's a little complicated. It's, to put it in a nutshell, when you make money, you have a paycheck, you turn around and you invest that money in your utilities, your car, your groceries, entertainment, all these different areas where you spend that money. And that goes into the whole economy, which when you work comes back to you. So it's how that money works for us in the economy and how those dollars represent the Oneida Nation and our economic impact. So it's pretty neat how that water moves around when you drop a stone in it. So does a penny when you drop a penny in the water. It just sort of, ripples into the community. So we're looking forward to seeing that next week. We do have a few announcements. As I mentioned when we opened earlier, it's the frozen tundra, and it is extremely cold. Everybody's been watching the forecast. The top news story in this area is how frigid the temperatures are and what impact that may have on our community. We do have some announcements. Basically, the Oneida Nation is business as usual on Friday. Our offices will be open, but there are some areas, some services, some programs that may have closure or restricted services due to that weather. There is no school for the Oneida Nation school system this week, so that was already on their calendar due to midwinter ceremonies. Midwinter ceremonies are still scheduled. We did have word that they will still start. The all elder activities are canceled for Friday. The congregate meal site is closed, and Meals on Wheels will not be delivered, but they will deliver an extra meal today, and then there will be no deliveries tomorrow. Oneida Recreation will be closed to the public as well. The Oneida Early Education Center will be closed, that was formerly known as Oneida Airport Child Care. The Oneida Nation farm offices and Bison and Buffalo Market will be closed tomorrow. Their phone number, if you'd like to call, is, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have the phone number. That's the dates. I apologize. Also, in the Milwaukee area, for our people down in Seattle, that area, the Bear Moon Powwow in Milwaukee is postponed. A new date will be announced soon. That was at the Milwaukee Indian Community School. Again, the Bear Moon Powwow will not occur due to the weather. Green Bay Public Schools will be closed tomorrow. We have a lot of students who go to the Green Bay Public Schools. They will be closed tomorrow due to the weather. Also, the Oneida Mail Center will restrict their activities to these buildings: the casino, the Oneida Community Health Center, enrollments, Norbert Hill Center, the Shenandoah Complex, Judiciary, Oneida Behavioral Health and Social Services. All other departments that need mail to go out will have to bring it to Big Bear Media Mail Center. If there's any changes, they will keep us updated. I don't see any more additions to our cancellations and restrictions. I missed one. I know I did. Okay. The Oneida Fitness Center will be open as a shelter tonight and tomorrow. We do have a flyer on there, as well as we have been posting that flyer. We also have a note from the Oneida Utilities for people to make sure that your pipes, that maybe you leave your faucet dripping, that you make sure there's no snow around your outdoor vents and meters, that you have clean filters, etc. So be prepared and be proactive on your Oneida Utilities. And I have an announcement, and I'm not finding it. Oneida Transit has restricted their hours. They will make their regular trips for taking people to their medical appointments and to work. However, they will stop transit tomorrow at 6 p.m. and tonight at 6 p.m. So I'm sorry, do not find that notice, but Oneida Transit. Other than that, I don't see any questions. It's getting cold all over. Hello from Texas. Even Texas has cold weather today. LCO, thank you all for watching from all over the country. Is there anything you forgot that you'd like to mention?
No, but I thank you for explaining the economic impact study. We look forward to that. And those examples that we gave are just a few of the issues that we're, of course, dealing with. Our area really does a lot of work in the legislative landscape, not just on the federal side, but the state, the local governments, and then, of course, with our tribe and tribal associations. So I appreciate the opportunity to be on with you, Bobby, and to be able to provide an update to our community.
I thank you for coming. I know it's important that our constituents know what our people are doing, and they wonder, why are you traveling to Washington? Why are you going here? Why are you going there? It's to keep those connections strong so that we can keep our presence in front of the state, the federal legislators, make sure that our story is told, and that we have an interest in making sure that they hear us and see us.
Absolutely.
All right. We will see you next week, Tuesday, and we'll see you Wednesday at the press conference, and we'll see you Thursday. In the meantime, stay safe and stay indoors when you can. Nungiwa.